welcome to yet another exciting class. My name is Chef Chileshim Sonda. I've been your trainer throughout this course, and I'm going to introduce you to yet another exciting recipe and pastry for our day today. So today we are looking at the pastry that we call in our common terms as fritters. So we're going to learn about how to prepare the fritters. So with the fritters you require 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Okay, so you're going to need as well 2 teaspoons of baking powder. You're going to need 1 teaspoon of salt, 3 teaspoons of sugar, 2 eggs lightly beaten, and you're going to need 1 cup of milk. Then again you're going to need water, but remember the water is optional, looking at the consistency of your paste when you come up with all the ingredients, mixing up the dry ingredients and the wet ingredients. We may move to our work surface area and see what we have in store for this particular recipe. Okay, so back to our work surface area, we have here our all-purpose flour, we have our eggs, the salt, the baking powder, the sugar, milk, our measuring utensils, the water, and of course our sieve to make sure that our flour is clean as we are measuring. And of course I always mention this cup is measuring up to 250 grams. It's our measuring cup as per tradition. So we'll continue with the measurements. So every time you're measuring flour, you have to make sure that it's flat out and leveled, okay? So we need 2 cups of all-purpose flour, so that's 1. Okay, that's our 2nd cup of our all-purpose flour. Okay, so deliberately when I'm doing fritters, I always add the baking powder before I sieve, so that my sieving process also helps me to mix the two evenly. So I'm going to do 2 leveled teaspoons of baking powder into the flour, and I'm going to start the sieving process. Okay, so as soon as this is well sieved, I make sure all residues are left out. Okay, my residues are left out. This is good to go. Using a tablespoon, I again mix so that they incorporate completely. And I go to my next dry ingredient. So my next dry ingredient on the list is salt. And for salt, again, we're requiring to use 1 leveled teaspoon of salt. So that's 1 teaspoon of salt. The next ingredient is sugar. And for sugar as well, I'm using a teaspoon. For sugar, I've always mentioned if you're on the sweet side, you may do more. But for my type of fritters, I rather use only 3 teaspoons of sugar. But if you love your fritters to be on the high sweet side, you may add more of that sugar to it. So I mix again to make sure that all the dry ingredients are fully incorporated before I start adding any of the wet ingredients. So as this is set and done, I set it aside. I go on to my eggs. Remember, the eggs are supposed to be lightly beaten before added to the actual mix of dry ingredients. So I break them separately just to make sure that they are not off, because in an event that one of these eggs is off, then I'll waste the sugar and all the other ingredients that I've put together that are dry. So these eggs are okay. I set them aside into a separate bowl. Using a fork, I break the yolks and lightly beat them before adding into the final mix. So upon beating the eggs, the only other ingredient that will be remaining for these fritters will be the milk and the water, which is optional. So I add my eggs, set aside, then the 1 cup of milk, and I begin to mix all these ingredients together. Okay, so the milk was gradually added into this paste so that I can see the consistency before I can add any other more dry wet ingredients to these dry ingredients. Okay, so I add a bit more of the milk to finish up the 1 cup that is on our recipe. Okay, have it fully mixed using my wooden cooking stick here. So as soon as it fully mixes, like I said, sometimes if you're using larger eggs, you may require to use more of the milk. If you're using larger eggs per se, you may use less of the milk. If you're using normal eggs, you may use just the actual amount of the milk according to the recipe. Like I said, the water is optional, and in this case, the optional is half. And looking at the consistency of my paste here, I am seeing that I need to require a bit more of the water to come up with that nice smooth running paste that I need for my fritters. So I add the water gradually, not everything at the go. Gradually coming up with a nice paste, because fritters don't need to have a hard dough. The dough has to be slightly running. Okay. So yeast as well is an optional for this. If you want, you may use the one that you use yeast, but the brand that I'm using for my baking powder requires that I use only the baking powder, and that's the recipe that I'm working with today. This is the recipe that I'm working with today. So as you can see, my gluten is coming up and the paste is also mixing completely. As you can see, the gluten is coming up and the paste is mixing completely. So as soon as this happens, I go to the last bunch of my water, add it in completely and mix it all in as well, nicely with my wooden cooking stick. You may want to add a bit more effort to the mixing so that it fully incorporates. So when it fully incorporates, you see a paste of that texture. So that's the texture of the paste you're looking for, that has fully incorporated. So I will rest this paste for 15 to 20 minutes so that the full reaction can take place, the fermentation, so that it's ready for that frying process. And now, as soon as that is happening, I'll still go to my stove and have my oil heating up in the process. So as we wait for this to rest for the next 10 minutes, let's make sure we switch on our stove and have our oil heated, because these have to be deep fried. So the paste has to look something like that. So onto our gas stove, we turn it on full heat. My flat frying pan is on and I add my cooking oil. Remember, fritters are supposed to be deep fried, so you always have to ensure that the oil is actually up to par. So that should do. Okay, that's our vegetable oil set. So as this is heating up, my fritters are also getting ready for that final frying process. So our oil is ready now and hot. So I dip my 2 tablespoons in the oil just to grease them. Grab a bit of paste. Using the 2 spoons, slide the paste into my hot oil, constantly, one at a time. So they will float, they will actually submerge, and when they start cooking, they'll float back to the top of the oil. That shows you that the consistency is okay and the puffing will be good as well. Going to the first fritter that you had put in the oil, you turn it before it can actually cook completely, so that you make sure all sides are cooking evenly. Okay, so you turn them just by checking which side looks much more brown compared to the other. They're supposed to be floppy and fluffy. you have it. They can be stubborn sometimes in the turning, but you have to be cautious and take it gentle until you make sure they're all turning over. Those that are having stubborn turning over, just hold them over until they are able to cook both sides evenly. As you can see, I'm achieving a nice golden brown on my fritters, and I'm constantly turning them so that they also cook in the inside. I want to make sure the inside is also cooked, so I constantly turn the fritters. I don't keep them cooking on one side, because the moment they cook on one side, they'll burn on one side and not cook on the other side. So I want to make sure my fritters are cooked nicely and evenly on both sides. So I constantly turn them and check them one at a time, so that as they cook on both sides, they are able to cook in the inside as well. The only challenge that people have is that their fritters are nicely golden brown on the outside, but the inside is not cooked. And normally that is caused because of too much heat. But as you can see, my heat is manageable. This is why they're not easily turning into high golden brown color, but having a very nice color over and over again as I turn them constantly. So the fact that it's a deep fry, they still come to the surface, but the fact that they are flattening out on top of the bottom of the pan, they cannot burn because of the direct heat from the pan just there, down there. So we are having a very nice color coming up and a very nice consistency, and I think I'm loving this. This is exactly what I was hoping out of these nice floppy fritters. So I let them cook on one side, 10 seconds per se, turn them over. When I come to turning them over, I turn everything over so that they are all on the same side when they are cooking. So I'm achieving that nice golden color that I'm looking for. See, now my fritters are nice golden brown, and I believe the inside is cooked as well. So I drain them off the pan nicely into a colander that they also drain again of the excess oil. So I drain them off nice into a colander that has got a draining plug for the oil as well. So we're going to continue with the other bunch, and thereafter we may present our fritters as we need. And there you have it for our final presentation. Like I always say, your presentation also matters. So these are our plated fritters, and as you can see from the inside, these are well cooked. The inside nice, and for that nice taste, wow, very nice. There you have it. Join us again for yet another exciting program as we discuss more about other recipes. For now, for the fritters, is thank you and blessed.